And the record button is on.
Yeah? What's up, Will? Bro, how's it going? What's up?
Who would have thought that after our last episode, when we said we'd go on a break, we actually end up being back in the studio recording another episode, but not a regular episode. We just have a lot on our mind, so we wanted to do a BP.
To be fair, first of all, what's up, guys? Will here. Next to me, I'm Jason, this GAP. We took a short break, 3 weeks, I guess, and then now we're back at it. We wanted to fill the winter air, unless if you're living in the Southern Hemisphere, then the summer air with our sultry, silky smooth voice.
You may need to talk a little bit louder.
God damn it. Okay, so this is BP number
There we go. All good
13.
now.
So
Gotta get the mic right in your face.
yeah, that means I need to like move it away whenever I need to breathe.
Or just turn your head. Anyway, so we don't always have it as like a set rule where, one guy, takes over one BP and the next person takes over the other BP, but it just so happens to be that way. So this time round, you wanna, rack your brain, Jason. What's been bothering you, or like what's been on your mind in terms of anime and manga?
So there is not, as Will said, any rules to how we should run this show, nor are there any rules to running BPs. But yes, today it is my turn to flip the script, to throw the topic in Will's face. So, Will, originally I did have a number of things that I wanted to touch upon in terms of a bits and pieces topic, but two recent news stories, which I'm pretty sure when we do episode 49, we will report on it, has piqued my interest and has then shifted my ideas. So these two news stories are, and one of them was on Christmas Day, believe it or not, was Hunter x Hunter got indefinitely on hiatus. So
you really want to talk about this? Okay.
No. So it's tangentially related. So then the other piece of news that I forgot on which day, but obviously it was around mid to late December, is, and I don't know if you know this, but episode 13 of Uncle from Another World,
I know about that.
Oji-san Isekai, is getting delayed due to COVID-19 in China.
Yep, I saw that as well.
So that got me thinking about a lot of things. The end of the year, you tend to look back. Some people do, at least I do, on the stuff that happened the past year and whatnot. And health is a very big concern nowadays. I think that is not like very like mind-blowing to hear that when one's health deteriorates, at a certain point you're dead.
I mean, we've talked about overwork in the industry. We've talked about debilitating health, whether it's physical, mental, even emotional, which has led to certain series, whether it be manga or anime, get shelved, get delayed. It's always like a tough thing to talk about, but it's a very much like a real reality that we have to deal with.
Yeah, and of course there are plenty of news stories that we have come across where it's, oh, this manga is on hiatus and whatnot. And I just thought this might be a good, interesting topic to just not really to be emphatic about the whole topic, but just to, discuss it with you and pick your brain a bit and have some of my thoughts put out there. And so the topic really is the general health and well-being of the anime and manga industry, and even maybe the health of the industry themselves, rather than just the people that help make the industry go. So
funny enough, before we even started recording, you were like, I wonder if we have some crossover of our topics. There's no major crossover, but there were a couple of things that you mentioned that I think I might also discuss in an upcoming BP whenever that one will release.
We time travel.
Yeah, but we'll keep it specifically to this discussion here in terms of the general health of creators, publishers, and what that means for the greater landscape of anime and manga. So this goes back to when we did our proliferation of anime and manga, how it's essentially no longer just a small niche of geeks and nerds on the internet looking for 2D cartoons, and now actually blossoming into multi-billion-dollar industries where you have mega box office hits, in terms of like Jujutsu Kaisen Zero. You also had all the Makoto Shinkai movies. Let's not forget about Demon Slayer Mugen Train, which then means, of course, that everybody is going to be clamoring for the next best thing, the next thing to binge on, the next thing to really take up our time. But regards to how we use our time, there's also going to be needing someone to actually create something for us to enjoy. And we've seen it many, many times. Particularly we've covered the working conditions of animators at Mappa Studio, or even other studios where they have to work with extremely stringent timelines, deadlines, and essentially just need to get something out so that people can enjoy. That does come at the detriment of their mental well-being, their physical health, and more often than not, we know that with these companies, right, with Mappa, with Crunchyroll, Netflix, any major production studio or distribution studio, streaming service, these are all for-profit companies. So no matter what, like even if there was like a workplace industry or workplace injury, or if there was like some sort of maybe unionized strike in the background,
or a viral outbreak, if you will,
that one has been like commonplace like for like well over 2 years, almost 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that you unfortunately just have to sweep under the rug, because as a for-profit company, you have to make profit. The whole bottom line is that whatever you produce, whatever you do with your time, you've got to be making money. And so therefore you're just jamming so many different things in one go to be able to release and get people hyped about it, put more money into your pockets, and continue making these upcoming projects so you can continue to make more money. And that's just that vicious cycle.
Yeah, I mean, it is extremely obvious that if there is no cash flow going in, there will be no product to be made, no wages to be paid. So at a certain point, you can't just, have integrity and honor, right? At the end of the day, unless if you're doing it for charity or you're doing it on your own dime, when it's your ass on the line, when it's you have to feed your family's mouth and yours, you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes a lot of people tend to rag on whether it's the animation studio, the committee, or producers, and in many cases, they do deserve some sort of blame or scheduling conflict or whatnot, but it's a tough kind of industry. And when you factor in the Japanese kind of work culture, or even just Asian work culture, I'm sure, Will, you and I both live in Hong Kong. You and I know how
grueling it can be.
Yeah, and just in my opinion, a lot of people just wouldn't be able to handle it, even though here, at least in Hong Kong, at least I can say it is the norm to do certain, work practices or mannerisms that maybe to the West or other places, it is so like work-life balance, disproportionate, that kind of thing. And that's just the way it is. If you don't like it, then you're going to have to find somewhere else, right?
Find a place that actually suits your work-life balance, a place that creates a culture where you feel safe and welcomed. But at the same time, right, like how many of those places really exist? It's not even just an Asia thing; it's a global thing too. Because in the end, if you're not working for yourself, you're working for someone, and their expectations and deadlines may not match up with yours. So even if you want to work at a more leisurely pace, or you want to work at a faster pace, if the end product is dictated by someone else, then how much say do you really have in terms of managing a release schedule, or releasing something that would actually allow for you to create, edit, perfect, and then release, rather than just get everything done within a 2-week time span, or however short a time we're talking about.
Right. So animation companies, just like any other corporation or for-profit company, needs to make money in order to sustain itself. No brainer. You have heard countless news stories, and probably sometimes even personally experienced being overworked, exhausted, underpaid for the job that you do, or the animators do, or the mangakas do. No brainer. I, however, have done some thoughts about it, and I have found, obviously not how to fix this thing, because obviously it's a systemic thing, right? It's really hard to be able to be one dude and be like, yo, I got the panacea, I got the solution to all this. But I do have certain kind of thoughts about how to maybe alleviate or make things easier. And one of the things is actually a platform that Will, you and I consume quite a bit, or at least have consumed quite a bit. And that is a digital manga platform, Jump Plus. So I think something like Spy X Family Kaiju number 8 and nowadays Chainsaw Man, but more so about Kaiju number 8 and Spy X Family have been Spy X Family is massively popular, and it deservedly so, and we think that Kaiju number 8 is awesome, and it will be. You might have noticed, I'm sure you have, that sometimes the mangakas go on breaks, go on hiatus, and just maybe have one illustration for that kind of release. They call it chapter whatever 0.5 or 0.1. And Spy X Family also does the same thing. And it seems like this Hunter x Hunter kind of hiatus seems to kind of have that kind of trend where, look, we're not going to commit to a really fixed serialization, but we have something to sort of let you know that, hey, we're just going to chill for a bit, but here's something. We're not abandoning the project. We're not abandoning the manga, but listen, we hear you. Just give us a little bit of a break, and we'll give you what you want, at a fixed point at a later time. And usually when I see those comments for those maybe 1 or 2 page illustrations for the break illustration, you know what I mean? Like the 0.5s or whatnot, a chapter or whatever, 0.5, has always almost universally, I think very, very small portion of people are against it. In fact, they're all like, oh yeah, cool. It's cool. I'll hit notifications. I'll come back and check on it a bit. Now, that seems to give me an indication that, at least on a very surface level, that mangakas obviously still have a very rigid and hard working schedule and work ethic. But it seems that people really do understand how fucked up it can be.
Yeah, well, I think, when you're talking about, the manga series you mentioned, right? These are also, ironically, series that have actually got, some good acclaim. These are series that are popular, that are still running, and so therefore you can say that people are a little bit more forgiving. But what about the series that end up getting canceled early, or the series that just don't get as much of a the light shone on them because they're just not popular, right? It's easy to say that if you've made it, then you deserve to have a break. But what about the ones who just don't get that break, or just don't get that kind of eyes on their product, and therefore they have to constantly produce more and more and more manga or whatever product they're creating? At some point, if it's a a small name artist, small name mangaka that's trying to get their break, eventually they're gonna run into a wall where they just have to constantly produce something. Every 50 pages, 100 pages, maybe 2 or 3 of them are going to be good, and then afterwards, maybe after 5 or 6 serializations, only one of them ever gets an anime adaptation or gets enough
momentum, right? Yeah, so, totally get that.
So I know you're not providing a solution. You're just making suggestions. It's all just,
or at least an observation,
right?
Yeah.
I think that being able to give a pass to certain mangakas, it's only because of the fact that we've generally come to know that this is a good mangaka that produces good manga. Therefore, maybe we're a little bit more forgiving. But at the same time, that's literally the cream of the crop. Right? Yeah. That's the top 1, maybe 2%, and everything else underneath just doesn't get that same treatment.
I mean, going with what you're saying, Aka Akasaka, right? Kaguya-sama Love is War, beloved by all. The guy's just yo, guess what? Oshinoko is doing great too, but I'm just not going to draw because shit is really tough. I'm still going to draw on the side and for hobbies, and maybe I'll do a one-shot here and there. But, guys, I'm better off just writing shit. And because of the acclaim with the previous IPs, everyone's yeah, makes sense. Oh, Tatsuki Fujimoto, which does Chainsaw Man, obviously, only because he is so successful and kind of like a visionary in many ways, he gets a pass when he produces like 2 one-shots, well, actually 3, I think there's a third one called like Don't Listen to My Song
Don't
or
listen to
something.
my song. Look back, Airy. No, look back and Goodbye, Airy.
Yeah, but those first 2, which are kind of extensive one-shots, are like really phenomenal. And that's why people give them a pass. So, of course, I understand that we're only hearing about the cream of the crop and not sort of the lesser knowns. And you can even say that about the animation studios,
there is
right?
a counterpoint to the Tatsuki of Fujimoto one, which is the fact that, at the end of, the original Chainsaw Man series, he did say, hey, look, I've got something coming up for part 2, whenever that may release. So at least then he's already generated hype. But also that means that he's also generated enough patience amongst his fans as well, because, after nearly 98 chapters, almost 100 chapters of really, really good Chainsaw Man, people will be a little more forgiving that, like, this guy spent weeks on weeks on weeks on weeks producing something. He deserves to have a break. But during that break, he was still able to put out 3 one-shots, 2 which I would say are actual one-shots, and then one which is kind of just, like
it's 14, a chapter.
14, 15 pages, right? So it's not so much that, like, fans are like, hey, you know what, Tatsuki Fujimoto-san, just go get that deserved break. No, the guy was still, like, working behind the scenes. It's just that we waited a little bit longer for Chainsaw Man Part 2, which, he already said it's going to come out at some point. Don't worry so much about it. So I don't know if, we're giving him any sort of, like, treatment in terms of, just take the time you need to produce something. But I understand at the same time, when we talk about Tatsuki Fujimoto, because I've read all of Fire Punch as well, the little snippets he has when he talks about, like, personal stories, whether it's true or false, it kind of, gives you like a small glimpse into his mental well-being. And for a long time, even after doing Chainsaw Man, like, it was very clear the guy was still not doing very well on a personal level. And only recently has he become a little bit more out of his shell, a little more comfortable in doing stuff. So
wasn't it like the fold of the manga had like you would screenshot me like
there's a picture of there's a picture of himself from his childhood, and there'd be like a one line talking about how, like, oh, my grandmother killed my cat today.
Or like,
and I had to go to school. Like that's
or
not
like
what
I
it was
had chocolate today, or I had a walk today. That was nice, and I'm just like, bro, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
Now, whether that actually is like a deep dive into his mental or emotional well-being or whatever state he may be in, we can't ever like confirm it, right? Because in the end, these could be personal anecdotes. These could just be fictional lines he decided to throw in there just to be edgy or whatnot.
But I'm not surprised, right?
Right. It's something that you understand. Even then, it's like it's not like a cry for help. It's not like a cry for attention. But it does at least show that, like, hey, look, this guy is like I guess in a way a visionary, because Chainsaw Man, like, literally when it comes to the hype trains, could not be bigger, like no bigger than the Jujutsu Kaisens and the Demon Slayers and whatnot.
As of recording, still have not watched a single episode of Chainsaw Man.
Neither
Not
have
because
I.
it's bad, but because
we've read all the fucking manga, so there's no need for us to rush into it. Right?
I'm telling you, it's gonna be lit when I binge all of the episodes in one go. It's gonna be the best.
I mean, like, enough people on Twitter, on the Mal boards, like and Reddit are like saying this is like a visual masterpiece. I mean, every big anituber has already covered it, so we'll just take our time.
Yeah, Will and I don't want to say I told you so, but
it was good, huh? Right?
Yeah. So again, also with mangakas, right? Animation studios also fall into the same kind of quote unquote pitfall or dilemma, right? How many mappas do we hear where being short staffed and whatnot comes to light? But how many of these? And I don't want to say B-tier studios, but lesser known or smaller studios.
Let's just say smaller, because there's obviously some studios that get a lot more funding and do get a lot more bigger projects, and some which kind of actually have to scramble for work.
Yeah, exactly. So are you going to... Because when the industry as an animation studio is each project is make or break, do or die. I mean, you can say that about a lot of like industries, but animation is like that. You kind of have to figure out that the stakes, that if anything were to fall short of expectation or whatever the bottom line for the company is, it's game over. And it's just really unfortunate, but that's the way it is at the moment. But the reason why I mentioned Jump Plus, Will, is because the digital platform, at least from a manga standpoint, seems to at least offer some sort of breathing room. You know what I mean? For the creators. Now, does that mean that everyone gets to have that?
Yeah.
Does that mean
I was gonna say
does that mean
yeah.
that if the momentum stops, just like for example with Uncle Isekai, no one gives a shit about it anymore, or everyone's complaining that Netflix still has not released anything beyond episode 7, at least worldwide, despite the fact that it has been premiered in Japan, which really sucks because we want to see more, but we can't. So it's just like, and then now we hear all of a sudden, oh, by the way, guys, episode 13 is delayed, and I'm just staring at like Netflix and being like, well, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is not here yet. So I guess this doesn't make a difference. It does, but it also doesn't. So, and the whole Netflix thing of everything releasing in chunks versus week by week is also a different kind of dilemma too. So
yeah. That's actually something I wanted to get into later on, so maybe we'll save that for BP14. But
Sure.
yeah, I mean, the fact that you already talked about that, I'm sure we're gonna have a lot to talk about in the upcoming BP. But onto the access, well, at least the accessibility, and I guess somewhat of a forgiveness when it comes to digitally publishing your anime
like
and manga.
leniency kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that at some point though, right? Like we tend to be on the more forgiving side. You and I, right? Like we can't say that for everybody. So but I think that at some point, and this is not necessarily a good thing either, but patience wears thin. At some point, people are going to be like, well, why are we not getting anything new? Why have we been waiting for so long? If the health condition of the mangaka or the producer is that bad, then why not just come out and say, you know what, this is done. We're not going to do anything anymore. I mean, think, for example, right? Like, let's talk about your most favorite 3D anime of all time, right? Has there been any clamor or any mention about
for Land of the Lustrous
yeah.
season 2? Look, I that's a very good question, Will. I have no answer, but Beastars is pretty good, I guess. Studio Orange is on that.
But Beastars also has its own issues in terms of release schedules, not a lot as well, which we'll talk about later on. But
okay.
You know,
I think I know what you're trying to say for this other recording that we're doing in the near future. But
yeah. So I mean, in the end, right? Like if we talk about, for example, like just for the manga of Land of the Lustrous, has anything new come out recently?
Yeah, it started serialization a bit ago.
Yeah, but how long was the break in between?
A while, because she wanted to play
Allegedly.
Elden Ring. And,
Allegedly, right?
She took a photo of her PS5, so I guess there's that.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, when you were saying that, like, you know, this is a respected mangaka, we should give them the time and space they need to do what they need, because at the end of the day, as much as they are creatives, they're also human, and they do need to recharge their batteries, whether it's just to, you know, feel emotionally like safe to continue working, or even like on a physical level. But I can imagine that there is a good amount of people within the, you know, during that wait for the next Land Illustrious, and even for like Hunter x Hunter as well, where people are just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Why are we waiting so fucking long for this?
So not only, actually, now that I think about it, do I want to talk about the health of the creators, producers, animators. Not only do I want to talk about the health of the industry, which, as Willa and I kind of mentioned time and time again over the past several podcast seasons, anime and manga getting way popular. Since episode 5, when we did our stigmatization and proliferation of anime and manga, things have all the way gone to Mugen Train accounting for, what was it, like 12% of the GDP of the anime industry, or I don't know the actual statistic, but it's high.
In terms of like the second season of Demon Slayer as well, 20% of households in Japan were playing it at that time.
Yeah,
top 18, at the top for 18 weeks consecutively. So literally every demographic, every age, gender, occupation, whatever study there was, a good amount of those people were watching Demon Slayer. And that was just like in the last year and a half, 2 years.
And SIM Rumbling was #1 on the Billboard charts in the fucking US. I mean, Will and I, at least I love telling the story because it just exhibits the sheer proliferation of anime and manga within the zeitgeist. But one thing I do want to sort of mention is the health and well-being of the anime or manga series or whatever, the series themselves. Because as you said, right, when you create that expectation, like for example, let's talk about Devil's a Part-Timer. From season 1 to season 2 is massive, the wait.
It's like 9 years.
And we got something for season 2, but, And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, despite the fact that the mangaka did not get along with Shonen Jump, Bleach came back and was fucking banger, apparently. We went to a party, right, Will, where there was...
yeah, we did.
A person that...
she was very, very excited about Bleach, and I was just like, I got nothing to say because I haven't watched anything beyond the Aizen arc, but I'm glad that you're enjoying it because, hey, look, it is the greatest anime of all time on my anime list.
Yeah, number 1 currently. So,
funny enough, now Kaguya-sama has dropped. It's now 3rd.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, as it deserves to be.
What, AOT is 2?
No, of course not.
Oh, Brotherhood?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
Brotherhood, stands, the test of time. It's still, within the top 3.
So the Illuminati is still hard at work, yeah?
Well, I mean, it's more, I mean, like, we can talk about, like, the whole like, rating system that Mal has.
I'm trolling, I'm trolling.
I mean, like, you're also, like, in the same vein you're talking about it, there's loads of troll anitubers that do the same thing. We should go and, bash on Fullmetal Alchemist to bring it down so then our lovely Kaguya-sama can rise above and be number 1. Fruits Basket was also skyrocketing. Funny enough, it wasn't actually either of those series that caused this whole vote brigading situation to start in the first place. It was actually Interspecies Reviewer. That was a series that
was funny when that happened.
It was skyrocketing, and then at that point, Mal realized our voting system is actually broken because we can't stop people from just going on there and bombarding our website and just like
or bots, I think, right?
Well, I mean, like bots will fall into it too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because someone would be like, you know what? Let's just rally and make this number 1, and then all of a sudden now you can go. They actually have a formula on how the average scores are calculated, but that was only published back in 2018, and then after Interspecies Reviewer, they then had to realize, you know what, like, we need to make a couple changes. So it was like a certain percentage of anime must be consumed or manga must be consumed. And then there must be a certain amount of people that are actually actively that actually have this on their lists to be able to be relevant for scoring.
Side note,
yeah.
Did you know that Bocchi the Rock, which has ended, is higher ranked than Chainsaw Man?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. Because I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah,
but again, it's also the fact. I mean, we can talk about it again about the whole Mal listings and that like the top anime are not the best anime.
Yeah, and let's
just say that point and clear, right?
Yeah,
Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War is not the best anime of all time, but it is certainly one of the most popular, which is why it's up, at 9.22. The scores themselves are not indicative of whether an anime is good or not. It's just down to how popular it is and how people want to show praise by giving it a 10 or a 9 or whatever it may be.
Because at the end of the day, anime, manga, all this is an art form, which then therefore means it's subjective at a certain point.
Right.
But the hours people put in, the money that is generated, all like when people unfortunately have to go on hiatus or they pass away, all that stuff. Those are just straight, hard, cold facts, right? That no one can deny unless if they want to deny reality. And it is unfortunate that when I say that the digital manga space seems to be improving, may not be. There's of course, as we mentioned earlier, only probably the cream of the crop gets a pass of some sort, and only past a certain time period, whatever that may be. But I would argue that the anime digital streaming space is actually very, very restrictive, especially when you consider worldwide.
Yeah, we'll get into that again later on.
Oh, I see. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't talk about that then.
I mean, if you want to. I mean, like, I still feel I'd be able to talk about, what I want to talk about in BP14 anyway.
Sure.
But look, like, we can talk about, and we can highlight, the conditions that animators and producers work in. We can, of course, we've talked countless times about how many mangakas or producers have passed away or like are facing, crippling injuries or debilitating health that it actually, pauses or even like full blown just cancels a series. But what is there really that people can do? Right, like we talk about it not as like a solution, but more as like a highlight on what it could potentially be in terms of having more leniency on the digital platform. But as you've mentioned, anime itself is now a digital medium. Like people aren't rushing to buy Blu-rays and DVDs, or if you're still in the Stone Age using VHS, people now use streaming sites. But people at the end of the day want to consume entertainment at a frightening level. Like that's why like every media agency, every news tabloid talks about what the upcoming blockbuster movie is going to be, what the next Netflix series to binge on will be. Like, or if Amazon Prime or Hulu or whoever picks up something, then it's enough for people to switch subscriptions or to add an extra service onto their monthly expenditure. We all live in a society where everything has to work towards a goal. And unfortunately, the goal of these for-profit companies is to keep making money. So that goal isn't actually a goal in the end. There's no end to this whatsoever, because what happens when you make your first $1 million, your first $1 billion? You're just going to want to continue growing and growing and growing. And when the profits start slipping, when you start that you see your arrow is no longer ascending but actually descending, you're now going into the red, you have to be a lot more cutthroat. You got to find ways to steady the ship, cut costs, and bring things up to a level where you can continue to operate on a profitable level. And therefore, it does mean that, unfortunately, the health and well-being of the creators, of the people who actually produce the content for your services, they go by the wayside.
So, my very amateurish, cursory kind of response, which, by the way, is only one of someone who just follows anime and manga news, as well as somehow, by some miracle of God, has a podcast that is on the air, available for everyone. I have 2 to 3 solutions of varying degrees of practicality that I kind of want to throw at you, Will. So let's start with probably, I think, the least predictable one, which is alternate source of funding. We have participated and funded certain Kickstarters on animes like The Girl from the Other Side by Wit Studio and whatnot. We did not kickstart the 10th year, 20th year anniversary. But nonetheless, there are opportunities for the fans to kind of contribute to projects to have it kind of come to fruition, right? And I think that one is the least predictable, just because who knows what the product ends up being, because it also is dependent on funding, and that assumes that all of your funding is from the consumers, which is hardly ever the case. In fact, if anything, it's more like, hey, look at all the hype that this generated. Give us X amount of money. So then someone crunches the numbers and like, yeah, that checks out or something.
Yeah. On a property level of how that would actually like help or solve this ongoing issue of debilitating health and mental well-being, I would give that like a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean,
because like you said, right, funding. If people are already canceling Netflix and Crunchyroll subscriptions, why would they spend money on why would they, if they're trying to save money, why would they spend money on doing GoFundMe's and Kickstarters and whatnot? And
yeah.
Like that's where it's like it obviously is an avenue.
Yes,
it exists for a reason, but it's not a sustainable one.
Oh, definitely. But it is one that exists, and that one that we have participated in. Whether or not it stands the test of time or it solves a problem, I think is very, very small.
I don't think it'll solve a problem, but like you said, it provides an alternative to smaller studios, or to studios that just do not get adequate funding to be able to produce passion projects. Because let's be real, a lot of the stuff that comes out from Kickstarters don't always end up becoming profitable. Rather, it is like a great idea that comes from someone or some group, and they just don't have the money to be able to produce it on a massive scale. So therefore, they reach out to crowdfunding. And whether or not they continue to be able to produce high quality stuff, that's you can never depend on that. There are companies that depend on a Kickstarter model, a Patreon model, a GoFundMe model, and they somehow make it work for them. But again, that is like a very, very niche group of people that actually are able to take advantage of the platform, create a strong enough following to therefore be able to get enough funding to continue doing that. But when you start mixing in big studios like Wit, like Mappa, Madhouse, or whoever it is that wants to use a crowdfunding platform, that then creates a problem where it's like these are massive multi-million-dollar studios. Well, I mean, I don't know multi-million, but they definitely get enough money to be able to work and fund like projects that they get assigned to.
Or the reputation is solid, right? Everyone's heard it, right?
But then that brings on another side in terms of reputation, right? Why is a studio like Wit needing to get more money from people? Why is a studio like Trigger needing to get more money when they already have such a big pedigree? They really should have enough studios, enough production companies to come to them and say, hey, we know the stuff you've done. We want you to continue working. So that in itself brings like a different issue, which is, are the studios themselves just underpaid? Are they not getting enough funding and therefore need to go to crowdfunding sources?
Maybe. We don't know.
But that's a problem, right?
Definitely is a problem.
Because as big as the anime and manga industry are now, more and more money is being pumped into the industry. But where does that money go?
Exactly. Then goes into my sort of second kind of observation in terms of potential avenues for solution. And again, this is not a be-all, end-all, nor is this like the sole way. It's more like a mixture of a million different methods. But no one really buys a lot of Blu-rays, for example. Physical.
Ooh. When was the last time you bought a Blu-ray? That wasn't a Kickstarter, by the way.
Zoku?
Right. So that was it, right? But it's because of the fact that you've consumed everything else digitally for the Monogatari series, and you love the shit out of it, so of course you're going to go and get that shit. I don't have anything in terms of like digital media, but since I have a best friend here, there next to me, Jason, I absolutely fucking love the JoJo series. So he decided for my birthday last year to get me the art books for the JoJo series.
And that goes into, in my opinion, the most viable physical merchandise. Because, of course, the hardcore fans would buy the Blu-rays, right? But those are expensive. Those are hard to come by. And that also assumes that you have a disc slot to use your Blu-ray.
When was the last time? I mean, like, shit, like, I built a PC. It doesn't have a CD drive.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but art books, concept art. I can't tell you how many mangas I have bought in the last couple of years because that number is pretty... I'm not saying digital. Physical mangas. It's like zero.
Man,
but
the last one I bought, man, I bought a lot of Naruto, a lot of One Piece, and a lot of Bleach. I mean, of course, big three, right?
Gantz,
but
they're all in Chinese.
But that was like mid 2000s, like in the hype of the big three, right? And they were all in Chinese because it was just hard to get English manga at the time.
Thank you, Taiwan.
I did end up getting some Tokyo Ghoul later on, but that was back in 2017, 2018.
But Will,
since then, right? Since then, I haven't bought anything else. I did buy an art book.
There you
Tokyo
go.
Ghoul.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. But I have bought numerous art books, whether it is the Demon Slayer one, I have a Persona 3 and 4, and I'm trying to hunt for the fifth one. I don't even know if they even have a fifth art book. There has to be.
One of the art books that you got for me was like not even in print anymore. It was only in Japanese. You had to find some, like, you use, I don't know what, like, eBay or whatever you used to find and locate somebody. You had to, like, you use Google Translate to be able to communicate with the seller.
Bro, when they sent me the package for it and it has that cat, the Neko delivery Japanese brand, that's when you know shit is like legit because it wasn't DHL or UPS or FedEx or any of this. It was just
Neko Mail or whatever?
No, it's a really well-known delivery service. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it was like, you send it to me through that, bro, this guy's a G. This guy's old school. Fuck yeah. But anyways, yeah, I think art books though is something that people would be willing, at least I am personally, and I think minus sort of maybe the dimensions of the book, you would still be more open to it at least than, physical discs, right?
Yeah. Again, I think like in terms of how that would solve the issue of overwork and improving,
it doesn't.
It's again like a very small
negligible.
probability. Like But what you're doing here though is not so much providing solutions, but rather like alternatives in terms of how to generate more funding for studios or give or put more money into the pockets of the creators. And hopefully then, like even if they do need to take breaks, it's not just them nursing their well-being, they're also, fiscally sustainable too, right? In
Right.
the end, like these people don't necessarily get contracted by major publishers where they get, full like pension packages, they get health and dental care and all that. Like a lot of times these are self-funded, or if very 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 rarely you do get some sort of health package from your company and it's a limited or medium coverage, you end up having to fork over a lot of money when you just don't work. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, I mean, Togashi, right? Hunter x Hunter. I mean, he was working on Hunter x Hunter for so goddamn long, and then people started complaining about how the quality of the art started dropping in the last like 300 chapters.
I was one of those people.
But at the same time, too, it's like we didn't know any of the behind the scenes because people just don't want to pry into the health
or they just don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I were to
what we do see though is the product. And if we don't like the product, we complain. That's generally how it is. It's not like oh you can be like, oh, it's just a one-time thing. Like you go to a restaurant, you get a bad meal, it's fine, whatever. No, like you will be like, damn, I paid like $40 for this dish and it didn't taste as well as I imagined.
US, right?
Yeah, you would have a right at least to voice out some complaints, some dissatisfaction. But just don't like berate whoever made the food for you. Like in the end, there's still a human behind there. But to just continuously be like fine and blasé about whatever mishaps or whatever inconsistencies you have in a product, that's just not normal. Everyone is going to find some dissatisfaction in something and will voice out complaints. But then at the same time, right, like because of the fact that we want a final product, we just ignore who was the creator behind it. And so for Takashi, for Anno as well, when he was finishing up Evangelion and then funding ran out and he had to just basically use like PowerPoint sketchpads for whatever the last 2 to 3 chapters were, the outburst of negativity and criticism like was insurmountable.
Oh, absolutely.
And so therefore you need to think these people do need to take a break, right? It's not just because of the fact that they ran out of funding or they just have bad health. It's just in the end, we as the consumers end up putting these people in bad places, and therefore they need to have time, space, and safety to be able to recuperate and get back in the industry. But in order for all that to happen, they still need to be able to have a safety blanket financially to continue working, to be able to continue living with their lives. And so when we talk about, maybe giving more of a spotlight on art books or merchandise or even like, hard copy DVDs and whatnot, and maybe using alternative distribution platforms and crowdsourcing platforms to be able to fix up and rise that bottom line. These things they're band-aids, right? On a big old scar.
Yeah. So then comes my final kind of alternative, which in my opinion, again, as someone who actually is only a cursory critic of the industry and not like a actual in-depth,
like grain of salt kind of thing, right? Like,
yeah,
this is just an opinion. Take it for what you
exactly.
Worth.
Don't assume I'm some expert, But animation studio collaborations and handoff is kind of my last alternative way of mitigating, normalizing the workload for everyone. So Spy X Family, for example, is a WIT Studio Cloverworks production, while at the same time they release a bunch of different stuff. So WIT Studio at that time would be releasing, or maybe they have it done, they just didn't release it yet, The Ancient Magus Bride. I think they call it The Boy from the West and the Blue Knight, which I finished recently.
And they just got done with like stuff like Ranking of Kings. They were also in the midst of doing a few other projects. Cloverworks has been working on shit all the time as well.
Cloverworks is doing Bocchi the Rock. WIT Studio is,
they're keeping busy.
Exactly. So it's not like they're being lazy. But when they were collaborating, at first I kind of was like, the fuck? I mean, even though the two studios are very well known, I love them to death, But that collaboration threw me off balance. And then when I thought about it some more, I'm like, no shit, Jason. It makes perfect sense because you assume that, hey, maybe, okay, well, I have no evidence to say what I'm about to say, but the shift in burden, the shift in responsibilities is fluid or can be fluid. So maybe something happens here that they can't handle, or this studio is better at this than the other. But the fact that they're willing to collaborate, and I don't know how the profit or revenue is split, and I'm not assuming it's 50-50. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what I am assuming is that they are helping each other to create a product that actually ends up being very, very well done.
Yeah. So that does exist to some extent, not in the sense where it's like you have like your title card and immediately you see Wit, Cloverworks side by side, because every now and then you'll see like a Sunrise production that is supported by Tatsunoko, or you might get an OLM that has Production IG running in the background, but it's never like front and center. These are the studios that are working together.
Now, I feel like there's a caveat I need to say, which I know you're probably going to say this, but I feel like I should say it first, which is this obviously does not include outsourcing. This obviously does not include like.
But that's what I mean
like
too.
Studio
It's like
Mur or whatever.
Because in the end, that's just how it works too, right? Like you get a bunch of money, but you also don't have enough work staff, and I don't know why people just don't pay their animators more money. I don't run a business. I'm not going to complain about that, but
we'll report when we run our own animation studio.
But that's just like a model that people go through. I mean, like, why do you think that there are still like subtitle issues with Netflix and with Crunchyroll? It's because of that they don't have an in-house subtitle or they don't even just actually have like a proper unionized like dubbing and subbing community. Rather, they just go to freelancers. Because
I have opinions on that, by the way.
It's less taxes, it's easier to get freelance work, and also because you're working on rush schedules, it's just
you don't need to pay health coverage. But
so there's a whole slew on that thing too.
The subbing thing is actually, there is history behind why it is the way it is today, or at least it explains to some degree.
That's why Crunchyroll existed in the first place in 2006, right? Like it's because of the whole growth of fan subs and piracy companies that ended up showing like Crunchyroll coming in. It's like, you know what? Like there's a huge fan base of anime fans and not enough people wanting to watch it. Why don't we quote unquote legitimize it and use it as a paid service? Now, of course, there's a lot of other intricacies that go behind the scenes. Some stuff we may talk about in the next episode for our BP as well. But the point is that in terms of having active collaboration between studios, I like that. Like you said, having a Mur or like a Tatsunoko or any other company like outsourced and also brought onto the project, but not necessarily getting the spotlight. In the end, though, like the whole the brunt of criticism will fall on the main studio, right? It's never the licensors, the distributors, the publishers, whatnot. It is the studio that is front and center, the ones who are handling the works from the outside, right? And so to have like two studios come together to bear that burden together, hey, maybe or may not that will solve anything. Maybe actually just, two-folds or three-folds the issues, whatever it may be, because it would be like, imagine, for example, like Mappa and Production IG work together on one thing and it's being shit. Well, then both have eggs in their face. But like that's just like the easy assumption to make, right? Like if you had two big powerhouse studios come together and work and hopefully create a very easy and collaborative environment for people to work on better schedules, have less tight deadlines because it's easier for you to hand stuff off and communicate, and actually be able to produce something with less of like a physical and emotional burden on you. That could be something that works. Whether it will solve the issue at hand, I don't know. Because again, like I said, this is not a conclusive solution. In fact, this is just something that is wishful thinking. It's just wishful thinking because not many studios do that. Right, and to see that Cloverworks and Wit Studio were going to come together to put together Spy X Family, hey, wonderful! Like this is awesome, and also because it's fucking Spy X Family. It's a fucking good show. So,
and to be fair, besides collaboration, there is the transfer, the handoff, right? And those have varying level degrees of success. For every 2-year eternity there is with Studio Drive and with Brain Space and Studio Drive, I think is the name Is it Studio Drive?
I mean, also let's not forget, like, Vinland Saga was with
Exactly.
Studio, handed to Mappa.
AOT is also the same thing. So in those cases,
I think even Golden Kamuy as well, right?
Yeah,
it was
and
Gino Studio for a while.
Ancient Magus Bride used to be with Studio. Now it's Studio Kafka of Neon Evangelion fame, the creators from that. And I can at least, without really going into the review of it, the 3-episode OVA is very, very good. It's not like the same, I would say, of the same, but it might just be a budgeting issue. It just might be because it's 3 episodes anime original versus the manga. So it we'll see, just like with the second season of To Your Eternity, just like with the quote-unquote final season of AOT, we will see if the Ancient Magus' Bride Season 2 with a new studio, albeit a good studio, or at least a well-known one, will be able to deliver on the consistency and expectations of the fans. But collaborations at the very least assumes, right? Of course, you can be a cynic or you can be an optimist, but it assumes that a collaboration means you are in it together. What the proportion is, what the responsibilities are, as you said, it might just be a simple, we vouch for each other. We live bad boys for life. We live, we die together, ride or die, right? But
yeah, no, I think that, like, as we've said countless times already in this recording,
how many times, Will?
At least 7, 8 times.
That's pretty countless, bro.
Yeah, maybe even 9.
Shit,
like literally to your eternity at that point.
It is an eternity, but yeah.
But I think, like, what we are discussing here, we're not proposing. We're discussing here that these are things that could be used or done in a way to help alleviate stress, both on a financial level as well as on a health level of the creators, so that when we all want to continue watching the latest and greatest anime, we want to catch up on the latest and greatest manga, that we're also not just slowly and surely killing the creators that are putting these things in front of our faces. Like, there's obviously a lot more things that can be done. But the fact that it hasn't been done just shows that, like, whatever solutions anybody's talked about, whatever changes that can be made to the industries, they're going to persist. And it's not just like an anime manga industry specific thing as well. Like, every single industry is impacted by just short deadlines, increased consumerism, high expectations, instant gratification, whatever it may be. And so therefore, people are going to be a lot more cutthroat. People are going to make rash decisions. And unfortunately, whilst you could say, oh, it's the consumer that loses out, no. And in the end, it's the hand that feeds you. It's the fucking creators and producers who work tirelessly to be able to create good content for us. Good or bad, really, actually. Like, because bad anime, people still watch that shit. I mean, the fact that so much bad anime has gone second and third seasons, like, it bewilders me. But, there's space for that.
Or there's something that Will and I don't know, that someone somewhere has crunched the numbers or decide to give a second chance. There are so many possible explanations that we may never know, or anyone other than those people in that conference room or that studio would know, that maybe we would hear like 5-6 years later. And even then, that assumes that people are willing to spill the beans after the fact. But I do think that a Band-Aid is better than no aid whatsoever. Does that solve the systemic issue? No. It's
the reason why it's systemic, right? Like, if it's been industry-wide, like universal-wide, like, just putting a Band-Aid on this thing ain't gonna solve nothing. But at least it'll help to alleviate some of the pain.
Yeah, and I also feel that if each of these avenues get explored a little bit each time with each project, slowly but surely it becomes kind of ingrained in the system, and maybe over time it becomes common practice, or maybe over time it ends up contributing to a large proportion that can actually shoulder some of this burden and stress that all these animators, mangakas, creators feel.
Yeah.
So It is what it is, but at the end of the day, you can just hire more interns, right?
No.
Well, am I right? Am I right? Am I right?
One day.
Right?
Right, one day. But I think also just to sort of wrap this up as well. I think it just goes without saying. Like I think Jason will absolutely agree with me as well. If you're ever watching a show or you're reading a manga and it unfortunately gets delayed or canceled or something else causes it to stop your appreciation for it, be a little bit more forgiving. Be a little bit more understanding that there are so many things behind the scenes that you and I will never ever see, and therefore, before we even say, oh, fuck Uncle Isekai for not making anything, even though COVID's been a thing for a long, long time. Oh, screw Tagashi-san. If he was in such bad health, why is he still doing stuff? Oh, when he's still doing stuff, it's all shit. So why should we even care for his stuff? Don't do that. Because at the end of the day, you're forgetting that there is a human behind the product, and they've been working so long. They've made a career out of it just to be able to entertain you. So don't run your mouth and say, fuck this guy, fuck that guy, fuck this girl, fuck that girl. At least appreciate what you've consumed and hope for the best, because you don't know what you've got until it's gone. That's literally it.
So I agree most of what Will just said. I think when you put your product out there as, someone who hosts an anime podcast or just a consumer of anime or manga, we have the right to critique the thing that came out. However, even though it may not appear or it may look the same, what goes on in my mind or my intentions, other than saying what it is and how I feel about the product, is very different than how I feel about the creator. Because if you flip it on its side, sometimes, how many times have you seen, Will, where the product is good, but the creator is so shitty, and that just spoils the IP, even though it has very little to do with each other.
That's a whole different
topic.
But
What I'm trying to say is, yeah, if the product is bad, I have the ability and the right to say it's bad. But I'm not saying
fuck that guy.
Yeah, I'm not saying fuck that guy or fuck that studio. I'm just saying that's a bad product. Does that explain away, all of a sudden, if you tell me that there's tight deadlines or scheduling, I'll just be like, oh yeah, fine, then I'll give you an extra point on Mal? No, not really. Does that forgive or make my watching or consuming experience better? No, it doesn't. But it provides context in a way that separates the product from the person that made, or the group of people that made the product. So I might say, Uncle Isekai, it's not shit though, but Uncle Isekai is shit for COVID and delaying and what the fuck, guys. And I think that you have the right, and we all have the right to really kind of shit on that. But at the end of the day, I also feel like there is reasoning behind it. Does it justify it? To a certain extent, in this case, yes. But in another way, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. I know I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too, but that's really how I feel about that.
Yeah. I'm more just talking about it in relation to what brought up this discussion in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Respect for the creator's health and well-being. And, again, criticisms are always, going to happen, founded or unfounded. But at the same time, we ought to at least take a step back and just think, is it just us not liking the product, or are we going, a step further and hating on the person too? And I don't want to get to that level, because a lot of times it's very undeserved. And, if we want to continue consuming good anime and good manga, we have to continue supporting the industry, which includes the creators, which includes the animation studios. At the end of this conversation, have we solved anything? Of course, fuck no.
No,
right?
no, absolutely not.
Far from it. But at least, hopefully, by listening to this, at least you get a better idea of why we want to talk about it, and why it's it really shouldn't just be a controversial topic. Oh, don't talk about someone's health and well-being. You never understand someone's personal being. It's no, to want someone to have good health and mental well-being should be a norm. We shouldn't never wish for someone to, lose their sensibilities, lose their health and whatnot. That's just fucked up.
And you can also wish us good health and good tidings, because this is the end of BP number 13.
By the way, by the time this releases, I'm sure y'all had a very, very happy New Year.
Oh, yeah.
So, happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year, guys. Ready for 2023. Will and I are kind of ready. I don't know. We have to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Well, no.
Just don't wreck the script when you're doing the closing statement of today's episode.
What do you mean, wrecking the fact that you can reach us through our email, jpalet@gmail.com, GAPALETTE@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word. Using our handle @paletgood, that's capital P and capital G, all one word, on Twitter. And you can also join our GAP Discord. We have a website, www.goodanimepalette.com. And most importantly, because this is technically should be releasing at the beginning of 2023, but not season 5. It would be season 4. So, music credits for this episode. Our intro music is Relaxation Station by Magnus Ringblom. And we will not have a break music, but our outro music is none other than Golden Rules by Luax.
Both amazing tracks. Support them.
Yeah, and do you know how you can support them?
Do tell.
You can support them by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or other various music listening platforms. And our royalty-free music was provided by Epidemic Sound. Thank you very much, Epidemic Sound. If you're interested, you can sign up using our referral link that is in the show description. Terms and conditions apply. Yeah, so I know it's a heavy subject, and it is a very massive subject that permeates more than just the anime and manga industry or Asia or whatnot. But
it certainly permeated a lot of our episodes, because whether we liked it or not, like if we did do an episode specific to mental well-being, but we talk about this kind of stuff in almost every other episode, just talking about behind the scenes, health, mental well-being. It's just something that, like you said, is an unwanted part of the industry, but it very much is an everlasting existing part of the industry.
But we hope, regardless of whatever condition or circumstances, you will continue to exist to listen to our future episodes. Will, is there anything you want to end this heavy, burdensome, but important discussion?
Yeah, pray for our health and well-being for 2023 and beyond, because we want to continue producing all of these wonderful episodes, whether it's a BP, AD, or a regular episode. We just love this stuff. So far, nobody has come over and given us death threats.
And
don't
please
fucking
don't do that.
Please
Don't do that.
But we appreciate everybody, one of you, and at the same time, from us to you, from the GAP to the listeners, have a very, very wonderful Happy New Year.
Oh, and happy belated Christmas, guys.
Yeah, we didn't actually say that last time, right? So, yeah, happy holidays, Happy New Year, and I hope that everybody has a better year in 2023.
Peace.